What's up? What's up? Welcome back to my channel. Carlos here. Thank you for joining. Today we're talking about floats. From that thumbnail you can tell there's different sizes, different types, different colors, and there's different purposes for each one. So I'll kind of run through them real quick, and then we'll come down to the table and I'll kind of show you how to put them on the line and how they actually react when you're pulling on them, right? So first of all, like I usually say, with those starter kits, you're going to see something like this, right? Just a round plastic bobber. This is really good for starting out. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. Moving on to a different kind, this is called an oval, right? And this one's made out of balsa wood. Again, this one is going to be, it has actually a hole that passes through it, right? The entire length. And what this one allows is that bobber to slide up and down that line. And then you also have a pencil float, right? Which of course that looks like a pencil. Now some of these you'll actually have a hole that runs through it as well. Sometimes it'll have a spring on it, and like I said, when we come down to the table I'll show you what that means. And then there's different sizes, I mean different shapes of course. What you want to try to keep is, if you're going for a smaller one, you want to kind of match the size of your float with what you're going for, right? If you're going for small bluegill or perch, you don't want something like this, right? And then too, if you're going for monster catfish, you're not going to throw one of these little jokers on there and expect to be able to catch something, right? Because you're going to have a weight at the bottom of that, and that weight's also going to push down on that float. So there's a balance that you have to meet, right? What size of a weight to use with your float, and then like I said, not only that, but what type of fishing you're going to be doing, right? Are you going to be fishing very deep? Or are you going to be fishing pretty shallow? If you're fishing shallow, you're going to want something like this, where it pegs it on both sides, right? That's the easiest kind to use, where there's nothing else involved. When you're using one that has a hole through the middle, a slip bobber, this one as well has a hole through the middle of it. But this one also, so this one's also called a peg float. And when I say pegged, these little pieces of plastic from the ends, they come out, but they also have holes in the middle of them. So you can run your line through the middle of it. They actually have a slit right down that middle, so you can just pass your line through as well. So you can do it like a slip bobber, to where it'll pass through and then it goes up and down your line. Or you can also run that line through there, and then once you push that plastic down that middle, it wedges your line against the side of this float. So it doesn't move, it's pegged, right? Pegged on top, pegged on bottom. So we can go over, and like I said, when we come down to the table, I'll kind of show you the differences and when to pick them. But in a nutshell, like I said, you're going to more than likely see this one right off the bat. Right off the bat, in most of your starter kits, these are going to be really good. And like I said, there's different shapes and different sizes. They have smaller ones than this too. So depending on what you're going for. I personally like the oval, the balsa wood, the ones that slide up and down. Now color wise, I mean, they're gonna have green, orange, red, blue, I mean different colors. It doesn't really matter, it's mostly personal preference. If you're doing a lot of fishing in low light, then you want something that's gonna give you more of a contrast. So for me at night, the green's gonna stick out a lot more than an orange, right? Just because at nighttime there's less light, it's harder to see, you don't want to be squinting. Now they do sell floats, have little lights on the top of them, or glow sticks or whatever. You don't often quite need those. When it gets that dark where you can't even see anything, I usually move to just basically fishing off the bottom. So with that being said, let's come down to the table and we'll check them out. Okay everybody, we're here at the table. We're gonna go through how to attach the different floats to your line. So I'm using a 40-pound monofilament. I wanted something that was kind of thick enough for you to see. Now, of course, when you go out there, you're not going to be fishing with something like this. This is really thick stuff. But hopefully it'll show up really well on camera, so you can kind of see what I'm doing with my hands and the different parts of the float. So this is that round one, right? The round plastic float that we're talking about. So this one actually has a hook on the bottom, right? And it's also got a hook on the top. So to rig this one up, what you'll do is you'll put your thumb right here on the top, and you'll push it. When you push it, it's going to pop open that little hook. So you'll basically hook it on the line like that. Now this one actually has a channel that goes all the way around it, so it doesn't matter where that hook falls back in, as long as it goes all the way in. And then you'll rotate it to the top, but you're also going to push it on the back, right? Because if you don't, it'll just pop it up. So, and then with your fingertips, you're going to push down on the red portion, and then from there you'll just hook it and let it go. So what that does is it tethers that top and bottom of your line, and it's stuck right there, right? It's not going to go anywhere. You're good to go. So, and then that applies to, there's different kinds, right? The other ones that I showed you a while ago too. So for instance, this is another one, right? Same thing, hook on the top, hook on the bottom. Now what the difference is, if you look at that one, there's actually a hole. So I'm going to push on it real quick. There's a hole that hook tip goes into. If for some reason you do it, you go to put it on, and it's actually sitting sideways and it's not in the hole, you want to go ahead and fix that, because you can't fish it that way. That line will just slip. So you'll push it on the back and then on top, and then just kind of rotate it until it fully seats. So some of them do actually have a hole that it needs to fall into, and if it does, just make sure it goes in the hole and you'll be set. Like I said, if not, sometimes they'll have a channel, and as long as it seats in the channel, you'll be fine. Another thing to see, actually I didn't mention before, is this one actually has a weight on the bottom of it. If they do have weights on the bottom, you do not need to add a weight outside of that, like at the very bottom of your line. So that's always good. And then along that one, so the other one that we wanted to talk about was the pegged float, right? So it was this one, right? It had the 2 pieces of plastic on it that were actually in each side. Now with the peg floats, what you'll do, and like I said, this one has that little channel that goes down the middle. If you're gonna peg it, you're gonna go ahead and take off both of the pieces of plastic, and you're gonna go ahead and run that line right down that middle, just like that. And at that point, what you'll do is you'll put that plastic in there, and then on the other side, put it in there as well. So what that does is it basically pinches that line in there, and it's not gonna go anywhere. Hopefully that shows up, right? So it's not going to slide up or down. It's going to be pegged. So this one, if you need to move your line up or down, you just pull out. Usually you could just pull out one of them and then slide it to where you need it and then peg it again. So these aren't really too hard. I like those as well. And then the slip bobber, right? That's the one that we were talking about before. So at Academy or wherever you go, this was like a 40 pack, right? And that was like $4. Now this 40 pack should last you years. Like I said, once you put it on your line, you should never have to replace it unless either it falls off or for some reason you get stuck really deep and it comes off in your line. So basically that consists of your bobber stop, and it's also going to consist of a bead. Now the bead I'm going to be using, I'm either going to use this really big red one or this one, and they usually come with these little smaller ones, right? But for the camera's sake, like I said, it may not pick up everything that I'm trying to show you, so we'll use actually the red one. We'll use that little medium-sized red one. So, and this one is really good because when it comes to the kids, let's say down here, I'm not sure if it's off camera, down here is your hook, right? With the plastic ones, if I put it here, that basically means I'm fishing 6 inches deep, right? If you want to fish 3 or 4 feet, that means you have 3 or 4 feet of line just hanging down. And when they go to cast that line, and I'll show you when we go to rigging them up, you're going to have a lot of lines swinging around. It can be dangerous with the kids. With the slip bobber, which is this one right here, since it slides, it's going to allow that float to be down there. So you're only going to have just a little bit of line at the very bottom hanging out of your rod tip. But wherever you put that bobber stop is where you're going to be basically setting the depth of your line. So, and the way you do that is, this is basically just some string or yarn, and it has a little black piece of plastic with a slit. Now you can make these on your own, what they say, like a coffee straw and then some thread or whatever. I've never needed to. Like I said, it was $4 for 40 of them, and they're going to last you a really long time. So what you'll do is you'll basically take your line and you'll feed it through the middle of that hole, right? So now this is what we have. We're going to have our bobber stop, and then we're going to have our black piece of plastic and then our line. So what you'll do is you'll kind of pinch that off. See, I'm sliding it. I'm trying to do it where you can see, sliding it right off of that. Now that slit allows you just to go ahead and just let it drop. You don't have to worry about running it down your line. And what you'll do is you'll take the 2 tag ends and you'll pull them tight. Now what that does is the tighter you pull it, the tighter it is on that line, so it's not going to slide up or down, right? So from that point, once you get it tight, you're going to go ahead and cut off the tag ends. Now you don't want it this long because it's going to be passing through your rod guides, but you don't want it too short either. So you want it just a little bit, right? About maybe 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch. What that'll allow you to do is over time, sometimes they tend to loosen up, and having those ends just long enough gives you enough just to, grab on the ends and then tighten them up again. So once we have that on there, we're going to go ahead and take our bead and we'll put our bead on. So again, there's a hole. We're just going to basically thread it through. So now we have the bobber stop, and then we have our bead, okay? And then from that point, you can put on whatever float you want to. Doesn't matter which one of the slip bobbers it is. Like I said, the oval balsa wood are my favorite. So once you put that on there, you thread that through and then pull it tight. So what's going to happen now, sorry about that. What's going to happen now is when you throw that in the water, right? Everything's at the bottom. Your float and your hook and your weight, everything's at the bottom. Now, as it starts to come up, that float's going to push that bead and it's going to hit that knot, right? That bobber stop. Once it's at bobber stop, then you're set, right? Then when the fish starts pulling, it's going to pull it down. So if you want to fish 3 feet of water, you're basically going to have that bobber stop 3 feet from here all the way down to your hook. That distance between those two is going to be 3 feet. And the cool thing about that is to adjust it, you just slide it up. Slide it up or down your line, and that's where you're going to go. So you can fish anywhere between 1 foot, 10 foot, whatever. This bobber stop is going to dictate how deep you're fishing. So like I said, this would basically sit at the very bottom of your line by your hook and your weight. This part of it is actually going to be inside your rod, sometimes in the spool, depending on how deep you're fishing, or it'll be between the rod guides. So basically that's how your slip bobber works. And then like when you're done at the end of the day, you just pull it off and you're good to go. One thing I failed to mention, and let me put this bead on real quick because I did show you the float earlier. That little bitty float that I showed you, it almost looks like a little teardrop, is also a bobber, a slip bobber. This one right here. So the only difference is it doesn't pass through the middle, right? It just has the hole at the bottom. So if you're fishing with small fish, again, you'll run that through there, and then this serves the same purpose, right? So it's just a smaller float to use. As that line goes down, right, that float's going to want to push up towards the surface of the water. It's going to push that bead and it's going to hit that bobber stop, and then that's going to, of course, going to show you, it's going to give you your indication if there's any fish on there. The last one that I wanted to show you was the one with the spring on it, right? So it was this one right here. Now if you look really closely, it has a spring, and then inside that spring, if I pull it back, there's a little bit of a hook. Now what that's for is you would, with one hand, you're going to pull that spring back. Let's see if I can get it on camera. Pull that spring back and expose that hook. Wrap it around 2 times, just like that, and then let it go. Now you can wrap it 1 time, but if you wrap it 1 time, it's going to slide up and down, right? It doesn't give it enough friction. By wrapping it 2 times, now you have that friction of it wrapped around the shaft, but then the spring's pushing up on it as well. And then to adjust this one, you will just pull the spring back and then slide it up or down the line wherever you want to, and then, like I said, double it up and then let it go. So those are pretty simple. The other pencil weight that I showed you a while ago, same thing, right? You got your spring, you pull your spring back, and then there's the hook. You run around there a couple of times and you're good to go. So for this one, and then like I said, this one, they're going to be pegged to where they're not going to move once you put it on that line, right? It's going to stay in one position no matter what. And the slip bobbers are the ones that are going to slide up and down. So starting out, like when we go fishing, because we are going to go fishing, right? I'm going to show you how to fish these different floats, weights, hooks, all that good stuff. We're going to start off with this, where we're going to fish with the basic stuff you're going to see in the kits. Right? We're going to be using the round plastic floats with J hooks and then the bell weights and swivels. And then from there, we'll kind of move up and kind of show you the differences between those. Hey you guys, thank you for stopping by. Hopefully that answers any questions you had on floats, like the different types and sizes and when to use them. If you have any questions, or if you want me to go ahead and dig a little deeper, any questions at all, go ahead and leave me a comment down below, and I promise I'll get to it as soon as I can. Please make sure you like and subscribe to the video. The next one we're going to be doing is going to be over fishing line, monofilament versus braid, and when to use the different types. So with that being said, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time.